Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. If we could, bow our heads. Dear God, please bless our elected officials, grant them the wisdom to know and the courage to do what is right for all citizens. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Roll call, please.
Allen?
Here.
Green?
Here.
LaFour?
Here.
Mistrovich?
Here.
Reindell?
Here.
Ricks?
Here.
Warren?
Here.
Good to see everybody here tonight. That surprised the city manager because usually
Yes.
I tell him everybody's here. We don't need to go through all that, given all the masks and everything. Approval of minutes for the city council meeting of May 18th would be in order.
I'll make the motion.
Support.
Motion's been made and supported. Is there any discussion? Being not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion does pass. We also have the special budget workshop meeting of May 20th. The motion would be in order.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Motion's been made and supported. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Being not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion does pass. We move on to audience comments on any non-agenda items. Although this reads on both non-agenda and agenda items.
Yeah, we've been, after the first meeting or so, we've been doing the agenda items during the item. So I'll just ask, I know the city planner, Troy Jeschke, is in the community room with the audience tonight. Troy, do we have any comments on anything other than agenda items?
No, we do not.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We will move on to adoption of agenda. Any changes, Mr. City Manager?
No changes.
City Council, any changes? Motion to accept the agenda as presented would be in order.
I'll make the motion.
Support.
Motion been made, supported. Any discussion? Be not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion does pass. We need a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion been made and supported. There's no discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? Motion does pass. We have no public hearing this evening. We have 3 items for consideration. The first one being the consideration of request to keep chickens by Bradley and Keely Rotz at 35966 Madison Street. Mr. City Manager?
Council is scheduled to consider a petition from Bradley and Keely Rats to keep 4 egg-laying chickens, hens, and property located at 35966 Madison Street. The property in question is located on the south side of Madison between Ferguson and Stone and is surrounded by properties that are all single-family residential. The subject property is 0.27 acres in area. The city did send out notices previously to all of the surrounding or adjacent properties. We did receive 2 letters from neighboring properties. Both of those letters came in on Sunday and were in opposition to the chickens. And then the section 14-58 of the ordinance goes into the items and how council is to consider chickens. There are, at least I believe, the applicant and maybe one of the neighbors in for public participation at the time when council would like to hear from them.
Okay, I'd like to hear from them now before a motion is made. Is council good with that?
Yes.
From the applicants.
Okay, Troy,
Anybody
can you
else
have
that's here to
the,
speak?
bring them
It would
in.
be after council speaks first.
okay.
Okay.
Oh.
Would the applicants like to speak?
Yes, please.
We bring them in, or it's only 2 of them?
Because you got 9. Or, oh, wait a minute.
We'd have to bring them in separately, so.
That's right, it's 10 indoors,
Yeah.
100 outdoors.
So we have,
Is Troy?
Yep, go ahead, applicant.
Here.
She was waiting because she heard Mike speak, so.
Bring them in, or?
No, have them speak on the phone.
Okay. Yep, we're here.
Hi there. I'm Keely. I have my husband here. We're just looking for permission, hopefully, for the 4 hens. I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I'm going to be home cleaning up after them, obviously. What else?
We do homeschooling, so this is part of something that will be really good for our kids.
Yep, we have 3 young kids. They're 2, 4, and 6, and I think they would love the opportunity to help me take care of them and be respectful to the neighbors, make sure, obviously, no roosters in the plans. I mean, I know that's not allowed anyway, so that's something we don't want anyway. Hopefully, no nuisance, anything like that, so that's our plan.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before council discusses this?
No, just thank you for,
Considering.
Yeah, considering for sure.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, council, is there a motion before discussion?
We do have one other person here, a
I-
neighbor.
I think the mayor is going to have him speak after the council discusses it, but prior to the motion, or prior to the vote.
During audience comments, there you go. Okay, is there a motion, or is council want to disperse of the rules and talk about this before a motion? What's the council's pleasure?
I would.
I'd like to
To hear them.
discuss.
Discussion, we'll dispose of the rules right now? Okay. Comments?
I guess I could start. I think their intentions are well, and I think in the past, we have bypassed the rules, the ordinances to allow some, but those are in circumstances based on the property location and the neighbor's willingness to allow it. Unfortunately, I think their location is in a situation where I don't think it's in the best interest for the neighborhood, and I think it's too close. There's not enough room for everybody to be happy with the chickens, especially with two of them being in opposition right now. So I wouldn't be in favor at this point.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have just a couple of things. Mike Mistrovich here. I know part of the approval motion talks about relocating approximately 30 feet to the north, the coop as well. Then also, we received a letter from somebody that's on Stone Street that really wasn't directly behind or next to it, was a little bit down, but in their letter, they said that they could see that part of the house where I'm assuming the proposed chicken coop would be located. So my question on that one in regards to, were they looking at and sent their letter in based on the original request, or did it have the proposed new location by our city planner to move it 30 feet, that
Based on the original request,
original?
and they were not in initially the original mailing that we sent out, so they must have heard it from another neighbor potentially, or saw it on the agenda.
Okay. Because I think, just looking at the picture, if they moved it 30 feet, I think it would take it out of view of that property owner that had a concern. And so, I don't know. Obviously, they'll be made aware that it's going to be moved if it's approved, and if the property owners that are proposing the chicken coop are agreed to the new location, which I assume they are, since it probably brought up to them on the agenda, the recommendations. So that answers my question. It seemed like they were far enough away, the Stone Street participant or residents, from the location, especially with moving it. I didn't go back and walk the property, but I'm assuming that's a better situation. But like Dennis, I'm kind of torn on this one. This one's definitely good intentions. I completely understand. We did do some chickens in the past. It's been a while, and then we had the one last meeting. And we did have one that was close to here before, one time, Beebe Street in Madison, and since they have since gone, and that one was pretty much more out in the open than this one is here. Then also another letter that was sent to us was also against it due to the fact of the keeping the coop clean and rinsing it out. And the concern was that they would be smelling that, even the property owners are suggesting doing the right thing by cleaning it every day and once a week, I think, deep clean, which I think is the right thing to do. But then that person had a concern about still the runoff and the smell. And as was pointed out at the last meeting, we do have ordinances in place for blight and nuisance type activities that we could always refer back to. So I would like to hear more, but I'm kind of, this one, I can go either way at this point.
Anybody else?
I'm just gonna say one. So, we do have two opposing views submitted, and, one stated that they came to the city to get away from the farm smells and are concerned about their property values. The second letter stated very much the same. And again, this process pits neighbor against neighbor. I would like us to, I mean, I have a feeling this is going to keep coming back. I'm still a no in the city at all, but one thing I wish we would consider is some of the lots, we have some lots that are probably almost an acre, especially like on Pound and the exterior of the city, and also how far they are from the property line where the coop is, measurements, not that we could test smells or anything, but maybe in the future, because like I said, I have a feeling this is going to be coming back to us, take a look at that and developing something more, because this is hard to decide, because last week you guys, the motion passed and we were in favor of it, and now we're here presented with another one and at a different location, obviously too, but still landlocked inside the city, where then I'm going to vote no, well, depending on which motion is presented, but it seems unfair that one would pass and then one potentially wouldn't. So I would hope we could, in the future, look at this again. It's been probably 8 or 9 years since we seriously considered an ordinance for it. But now 2 weeks in a row, maybe the third will be the charm, and we might have an opportunity to discuss it again. Thank you.
Anybody else? As I've stated before, I believe we have to take it by a case-by-case basis. What we did at our last regular council meeting in approval was a much larger piece of property. We had the neighbors directly next door that said it was fine with them. We had other neighbors that said they could live with it. We had one neighbor that said that was over 100 feet away, saying that they didn't want to see it happen there. I'm looking at this one, the area is so much more confined with other outbuildings. Neighbors right up tight. The one letter says 40 feet outside of their dining room window is where it's proposed. Again, if it was moved, I don't know if that makes it closer or longer or whatever it may be. But when I think about the argument about it being 40 foot away out their dining room window, I'm thinking, well, what's to stop from having a dog pen right outside at that 40 feet, even closer, actually, because there's nothing against them putting a dog pen even closer to the property lines, as far as I could find in any of our ordinances. So we all know what a dog pen could look like, and we wouldn't want that to happen with chickens. I mean, it could get to that point, but again, we have nuisance laws and whatnot. But this area is just too small for me. I'm going to have to say no on this one. Maybe what we should be doing, looking ahead on this, is the possibility of setting up some more criteria, whether it be privacy fence surrounding it so you wouldn't have to look at it, certain square footage of the property, so much width, so much length of the property. Because I personally have had no problems in previous permissions, because quite often they've been on outskirts, or they were already existing there illegally, and the neighbors had absolutely no problems with the ducks, especially that were over on Karen Street a few years ago. We gave permission right on the corner of BB and Madison, and I don't know that we had any major issues there either. They were going to have to put up, was it certain type of bushes?
Rows of Sharon bushes, I think they would
Yeah,
agree
so,
to.
you know, it was much more open area. The houses across the street sit quite a bit farther off the road. And the immediate neighbor had absolutely no problem with it. So, but they were all different than this. This is where you've got how many properties that adjoin that property. Much smaller, much more condensed area. So I don't have a problem having the ordinance the way it is, but depending on how council goes tonight, maybe that's something we could look at our workshop in
Sure.
July. Take a look at if we want to look at any other criteria for this in the future. But right now, I've got to say no. There's always a smell problem, and so that's associated. And as close as this is, I have a major concern of that. I don't want to wait a year. I don't think the neighbors should have to wait a year if there is a smell issue. As clean as they can possibly keep it, there is still a smell, and that's a matter of fact. The vermin and everything else, you keep it off of the ground. You keep it, well fenced and everything else. Those vermin are going to be around no matter what, unless you have a really, really dirty pen and don't maintain it. And now you are talking where you could possibly bring in vermin that you otherwise wouldn't notice in the neighborhood. So this one I'm going to have to say no. Anybody else?
Yeah, I agree. With the neighbors' concerns and the view, like I said, and looking at the pictures with no fence, if there was some kind of privacy fence, I actually would have been a lot more okay with it, given the small lot size. I mean, the last one we approved was almost 3/4 of an acre.
Yeah.
With neighbor approval. This is quite a bit less than that with neighbor objection and no fence. I mean, it's a hard one to make a call on, but I think that's what we're here to do tonight.
Council entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to deny the permission to Bradley and Keely Rotz to keep up to 4 hens on the property.
Support.
What's been made and supported? Any further discussion? We have
You
somebody
have one
in-
person, yes, I believe one more in the.
Troy, if there's somebody else who would like to speak to this, comments are taken at this time from the public.
Yes, the gentleman is coming up right now.
Okay,
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Smola, and I own the home at 69843. My wife did, this is just for the record, my wife sent this in. First of all, the pen is existent. What they did is in the corner of their yard, and it's about 4 feet from my fence, my property in the corner. They had, the previous owners had a little barn-type, tiny wooden shed. They've already converted that into a coop. Also, what they've done, I'd like to just correct in the letter, is it says that their water, because they've been cleaning and washing, they dug a trench from their hen house they want to put up right into my backyard and the neighbor's backyard. So, I'm glad you guys turned it down, because I was just concerned with the noise, because laying hens make noise. I was concerned with the feces, the smell. I'm 61 years old, I'm retired, and I've had a massive stroke and 3 other ones. We love that neighborhood because it's quiet. I have no problems with the dogs barking, the kids and all that, but I also grew up on a farm in Romulus, Michigan, and chickens are dirty, they make noise even though they're not roosters. And when they lay eggs, they make a lot of noise. So I just want the comfort of the peace and quiet. I sure don't want to smell because my dining room is 40 feet away and we only use the air conditioning when we have to. So that and our kitchen windows open and I just don't want to smell all that. I respect what they're trying to do, but I also respect the fact that I submit this option due to the fact that it's a violation of the city ordinance, chapter 14, article 11, section 14 through 57. And, you know, that water that he's got going on to our property, it doesn't run, 100 feet down to the curb. It just puddles there in my yard and in the neighbor's yard. And I'm concerned about the smell, rodents, things like that. But at this time, I am correct that you declined their motion.
We didn't vote yet.
In my tax, I'm not paying agricultural taxes. I've got I have 7 homes around the block, but my yard. I got a beautiful yard, grandchildren back there, and they also have children. And from past experience, I believe firmly that with a coop with 4 laying hens who make noise are going to become agitated and make more noise every day when the kids are coming out to play. I need peace and quiet. I have health problems. I've got a beautiful home, couldn't be any better. And with all due respect, we have an ordinance, and I submit, you got to forgive me, I've had some strokes. I submit that, unless I can start paying agricultural taxes, and I just don't want it. There's noise, the feces, possibility of rodents. It's just crazy. Not to mention they have a dog, and their dog is a loud barker, which I have no problem with because he's a dog, but I'm sure that's going to agitate and make a lot of noise. And again, my 2 points are, I need as much peace and quiet as I can get due to my medical conditions, and it's unsanitary, and it smells. And with that, again, I'd like to ask you guys to decline their offer and uphold the city ordinance. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else, Troy, that would like to speak to it?
No, the applicants left.
Okay. Okay, we'll bring it back to the table here. I keep on hearing, and I want to set the record straight here, this is not a violation of the ordinance.
Right.
The ordinance allows the city council and only the city council to grant the what I want to say, the,
Applicants?
pardon me?
Applicants?
Yeah, the application. So this is not against any ordinance that we have. I've been around this town long enough, and I'm sure there's at least one other person who remembers, because he lived in the same neighborhood, when we had horses that really weren't well kept. They were not, their pen wasn't cleaned. The smell was something that you put up with because they were grandfathered, and it was accepted. That was in the 60s and 70s that I was in the same neighborhood that fellow councilman grew up in. And the reason that this came about was because of that. It grandfathered them, but it was because the smell was so bad. It wasn't so much that the animal itself was there, it was that they really weren't taken care of real well as far as being inside the city limits, and you would think somebody would keep it very, very clean. But the people that had it were older. They had had the horses for many, many years, and they were doing their best with what they had at the time. But that was one of the reasons that I remember this ordinance came about, that it's not gonna be allowed, any farm animals. I still say that we need to take maybe a harder look at this. I don't want to deny having the ability of the council to determine what is right and what's wrong as far as geographic areas in our community. We have some areas that back up to the township woods on parts of the city of Richmond. Nobody's talked about it, well, we gave okay for the horses a few years ago. There had been horses out on Pound Road for a number of years. A family had horses for as long as I can remember. They sold the home, and somebody who bought it because of its location and its horse farm type atmosphere. And we okayed the horses. I've never received a complaint. I don't know if there's still horses there or not. But it fit. Again, it backed up to Richmond Township. It backed up to the woods back there, and it was a perfect spot for what they wanted to do there. So I want to make it real clear that it is not a violation of ordinance. The city council has put upon itself the responsibility to make this a yay or nay situation when it comes to these requests. So, any other discussion, council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think you're right. We need to, at some point, take a look at this again. Maybe like we do with other things, have certain setbacks that are in place for coop, so that something that's like this, where it's right up close to the property line, is maybe not the way to go.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, maybe we, kind of what Councilor Green said earlier, you know, that houses that have a lot more property, well, they've spent more for their property, more taxes, and they can handle something like this without being in the middle of a populated neighborhood. So, yeah, I think we need to, not, obviously not today, but one of our workshops, maybe the next one.
I went online this afternoon and tried to find as much as I could, and there wasn't a whole lot online. Maybe through the city manager service, we can maybe find some other communities that have something a little more, with a little more criteria to it. And
I'm sure if I put it out there, I know there's other communities that have ordinances. We can certainly get their criteria, absolutely.
It was interesting to read, I can't remember the town now, but in New York State, and I can't recall the name of the town right now, but anyhow, they had a lot of bantering back and forth, pro and con, and it was good read. And there, again, it was, you know, you could go either way on it, and it mostly had more to do with where, the location of the chickens and how much space there is for them. So, anyhow.
And also, Mr. Mayor, I think, you know, with having the year to review it after a year, in case the neighbors do have issues, those type of things, leaves us an option. It's not a, you know, forever type thing. And in the past, any approvals that I've been associated with, they no longer have the chickens there anyways. It's almost like it's a fad type thing. They try it for a year or two, but we've never had any neighbors come back and complain about the ones that we have approved. So, but this is the first one where we've had multiple requests, and I think in the location that I don't think it works real well. So.
Yep. Yeah. Anything else, council? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion does pass. Go on to item number 2 is consideration of special event request, St. Augustine Catholic Church, walk down Main Street. Mr. City Manager?
Council is scheduled to consider a request the city received from St. Augustine Church to conduct their procession on Main Street. The event is scheduled for Sunday, June 14th. St. A's Church parishioners will march approximately, or go to church at 7 a.m. and then shortly thereafter progress on foot north on Main Street toward Memphis. In the past, they've had, you know, I think 100 or so people participate, maybe even more. Given the times, I'm not sure how many they'll get this year. The president has announced on Friday, May 22nd, that places of worship are essential. Certainly this walk could fall under that.
Thank you. Is there a motion before discussion?
I make a motion to approve the request received from St. Augustine Church to conduct their procession down Main Street beginning at approximately 7 a.m. on Sunday, June 14th, 2020 at St. Augustine's Church and traveling north along Main Street to Holy Parish Church in Memphis. Support.
What's been made and supported? Is there any discussion on this annual event?
I'm just thankful something wasn't canceled.
Question, the motion, John. We are approving the request to go Main Street to Holy Parish Church in Memphis. We don't have the authority to do that, even though the parade goes that far.
Correct.
We're not, are we,
You're not. You're just really giving them, the motion could be changed to Main Street to the city limits.
yeah,
From where they will continue north in others' jurisdictions. Yeah, we're only doing it for the city of Richmond.
right. Jamie, would you consider amending your motion before we,
Absolutely, to traveling north along Main Street to the city limits.
thank you.
Well, okay, so hold on. Do we want it the city limits or past the cemetery? Because I know the cemetery technically isn't in the city limits.
At this point, I'd say to the city limits.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that what you would like to do, is 2 city limits?
Yes, that's fine.
And Emily, it doesn't matter, but I'm going to extend you the courtesy. Do you still support that?
Yes, I do,
Okay.
thank you.
I say that because I worry a little bit that maybe
They
members
we're-
think that we're given an authority to go
Yeah.
outside the city of Richmond. It's like, where are the police? Where is our
Absolutely.
escorts?
Yep.
Well, and that's why I wanted to clarify too, because they would be like, well, why aren't we going all the way? Because most people don't realize the cemetery is not in the city limits.
Yeah, yeah,
And I know we've had those discussions with them previously, but certainly it's good to remind them of that. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely, and I will.
yeah. So do you think this goes to Richmond Township also then?
I don't know who else they submitted to.
Yeah.
I think their biggest concern is the city of Richmond because we have a little bit more traffic once we
Yeah.
get out past us. I think, I don't know if they've ever contacted the sheriff's department or not for any help. I know their biggest concern, I think, in the past when they've come before council has been kind of getting through Division Road and getting along Main Street where it's kind of tight there.
Yeah,
And they can't get off on the shoulder.
yeah, okay. Troy, is there anybody that's joined the meeting that would talk to this?
No, there is nobody here.
Okay, thank you. Back to the table. Anything else? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? We wish them good luck. Good weather. Item number 3 is consideration of extension of local emergency declaration. Mr. City Manager.
City Council is scheduled to consider extending the local state of emergency that was declared by Mayor Tim Ricks on March 16th. As council may recall, they, at that same date, at a council meeting later after the emergency was declared, did approve an extension of 90 days. That comes up a little bit sooner than our next meeting, so we're asking for you to extend it until July 7th. Right now, obviously, the biggest issue for us is that we're still spending funds dealing with COVID-19, and we would like to make sure that those funds, we at least have a chance at getting back some federal funding for those. And so by extending that, that helps our case. There is a error in the motion on the second line, almost to the end. I put May 15th. It should be March 16th. That was when it was originally declared.
Is there a motion before discussion?
I'll make the motion to approve extending the local state of emergency that was declared by Mayor Tim Ricks on March 16, 2020, for a period of 23 days after expiration of the original 90-day extension until July 7th, 2020.
Support.
Most been made in support. Is there any discussion? This does not have any effect on anything that we're doing other than the fact that if there are funds available, we can recoup some of our costs, if there are costs. We'll make that real clear right now, so that people don't think we're extending a stay home, stay safe, or anything else. This is just a matter of business that we need to do in case we have expenses that we can maybe recoup. Any other discussion? Nobody in the audience? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion does pass. We move on to miscellaneous matters from the city manager.
Just that certainly with today's announcement and new executive order, there's going to be a lot of new information that city administration are going to need to kind of go over and look and review, and it references a lot of the previous executive orders, so I'm not able at tonight's meeting to say exactly the impact, but I do think it'll impact a lot of our city services and buildings in the next week or so. So we'll be making sure that council keeps informed and the public keeps informed on any changes we have to parks, library, city hall, those sorts of operations, and any programming changes that we may or may not make due to that. Again, there's a lot of information that was released today, and it takes, a day or so to kind of make sure we understand it all and reference the correct previous orders that sometimes the new one references. So we'll be doing that and kind of keep an eye out. We'll continue to make sure everyone stays informed as possible. And just a thank you to Jason, Troy, and Karen Stagel tonight for helping with the meeting, making sure we could hear on the audience participation, and especially for Jason for kind of setting up a new camera system while we socially distance here at our meetings.
John, I have a question. Being the governor came out with this all of a sudden today, I believe it's taken everybody by surprise.
Yes.
The council's made some decisions in the last couple of weeks and prior. Will council have to meet to undo those things, given her new?
I think some of we may or may not choose to do that. I mean, that's something the next day, like certain things that she's issued, I think kind of almost take those decisions out of your hands.
Okay.
Certain things that are city related, although kind of give us back that power, due to staffing, due to time of the year, we may or may not be able to pick up and run with it as quickly as others. Certainly, for example, the pool, the restrictions are 50% capacity. That obviously cuts into the revenues, but it also still says that it's subject to local guidelines. Well, Macomb, Wayne, Oakland, and the city of Detroit health departments all went together and issued certain things. So part of what we'll need to look at is, have any of those been rescinded, or can we get a county permit for our pool?
Yeah.
So it's within the last couple hours kind of unclear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Where
Absolutely.
we're at with that. So
Yeah.
other things where we've given some guidelines to organizations. Certainly the executive order in those areas are a little more clear, and I'll provide that information to council, and kind of my thought is it's pretty clear with the order on certain outdoor sporting activities,
Yeah.
So we may or may not need to meet to undo those things.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
But it's certainly, hopefully in the day or so, be able to inform council of that.
Yeah, okay. Until next week when she says something else.
Correct.
John?
I'm all set, thank you.
Emily?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Jamie?
No, just I can't wait to see that tape being torn down off the play structure.
Yeah. Dennis?
Nothing tonight.
Rob?
Nope.
No.
And I have nothing. The motion to, well, I'm sorry, is there any other business of the city council? Being not,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
motion been made and supported. There's no discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Thanks for being with us.